We have yet another hearing going on before the U.S. Senate. And of course, the U.S. Senate is being briefed on one of the favorite topics on Capitol Hill these days, the idea that China is some kind of massive threat to the United States and the world. Now, what we heard was basically testimony assessing that despite the efforts by the United States to whip up hostility to Russia and isolate Russia around the world, China will continue to cooperate and strengthen its relationship with Russia when it comes to diplomacy, when it comes to defense, technology, economic cooperation, etc. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence made clear that Russia and China are working closely together. Now, in addition to that, we heard predictions from U.S. officials, the intelligence community, that China will continue to press Taiwan, and furthermore, that China will seek to undercut the United States. Here's some of what we heard.
The CCP continues to take an increasingly aggressive approach to external affairs, pursuing its goal of building a world-class military, expanding its nuclear arsenal, pursuing counter-space weapons capable of targeting U.S. and allied satellites. In brief, the CCP represents both the leading and most consequential threat to U.S. national security and leadership globally.
Now, we recently heard the Chinese president has not done before and directly call out the United States by name. We also heard the Chinese foreign minister speak up and say the United States needs to hit the brakes when it comes to the issue of dealing with China, or else this could lead to some kind of confrontation. Here's what was said by the Chinese foreign minister.
If the United States has the ambition to make itself great again, it should not block the way for the development of other countries. Containment and suppression will not make America great, and it will not stop the restoration of China.
We have a situation here where China is responding to all kinds of trade warfare and efforts to suppress their economic growth from the United States, continued hostility from the United States. And we have an atmosphere in the United States, of course, that is trying to play up the notion that China is a huge threat, that we should all be very, very afraid of China. And it seems like today's hearings also seem to emphasize the growing cooperation between China and Russia.
It's a problem for Washington in the sense that Washington is pursuing this war against Russia vis-a-vis Ukraine, and it's very much a proxy war. The Chinese foreign minister talked about, I think he said, even an invisible hand, right, that's really guiding and steering this war. That's why there's been no calls by the West for peace, and even by the Ukrainian side for peace, whereas China is now calling for it. Russia obviously has said they're open to peace talks. Across the board, I feel like they're picking and choosing who they want to, how do you say, who they decide is the enemy of the week. And right now maybe it's politically it serves their agenda, to say that China is their number one enemy. When you're talking about the amount of trade and influence that China has globally, it's one thing to say that when you're trying to basically stoke excitement in the media or in Washington and deploy defense spending in certain areas. But in terms of reality, I don't think that China is the number one enemy of Americans.